In the previous video, we discussed street conditions and how each condition requires different methods of maintenance and repairs. We also discussed the potential cost, but in this presentation, we will be showing in more detail the numbers, how the cost is broken down, and methods that can be used to make meaningful change. As a reminder from the prior presentation, currently we can't maintain or improve enough streets before they become deferred maintenance. We need to increase our coverage for street improvements and tackle the uphill battle of time versus cost. In this video, we will be discussing how streets are funded, budgeted, and our goals for capital improvement. Here is a breakdown of what those costs look like. It may be easier to think of budgets like buckets, where funds are set aside and distributed for a specific use. The bucket for streets comes from several sources, such as state and local gas tax, street fees, and additional sources, like grants and transfers from other buckets. These sources fill the bucket and provide funds for street projects. In the example, we have a total of $1,141,000 to use for street-related expenditures. We have identified the essential expenditures for basic street maintenance and operations is $1,028,000. This includes basic maintenance such as street sweeping, crack sealing, and other repairs. When factoring in the revenue noted on the prior slide, the remaining street budget for improving streets that require rehabilitation or reconstruction is $113,000. The streets requiring rehabilitation and reconstruction are considered deferred maintenance, which has been postponed for decades. Here is an overview of each street's condition by the total mileage and the estimated cost to rehabilitate and reconstruct them. The total cost to maintain and repair all streets is just over $30 million. That's a lot to keep track of, so maybe another way of looking at it is by bringing back the $113,000 from our remaining budget and see how much we can maintain a street with our current funding. This is the amount of mileage we can maintain if we focused all our remaining budget to improve just one type of street condition. This means that a significant amount of deferred maintenance remains. The question is, what do we do now? All the remaining streets are on a downward spiral and will require more expensive reconstruction maintenance. We need to increase our coverage for street maintenance and tackle the uphill battle of time versus cost versus deferred maintenance, which is why we need to implement a comprehensive strategy for streets. Potential funding strategies that have been discussed and considered include adjustments to the street fee, adjustments to local gas tax, applying for a bond, federal and state grants, general fund supplement, and urban renewal. Let's start with the adjustments to the street fee. Currently, the state and street fee is $4 per single-family home per month. Based on recent projections, we need to increase the street fee for the next 5 years to meet the minimum to cover maintenance for streets. This does not include funding for capital improvement projects. The local state and gas tax is currently 3 cents per gallon. For every increase of 1 cent, there is the potential for an additional $65,000 every year as incoming revenue for the city of Staten. The next strategy would be to apply for a bond or loan. Currently, there are several options for bonds that the city can apply for. However, before we can apply, we need to confirm with you, the community, that we are willing to take on the repayment. A bond is like a loan. You receive a large amount of funds which can be used immediately for projects, but it will be up to the city and the residents to decide how to repay the bond. It will require a long-term repayment plan and a vote for a bond measure. The next strategy would be grants. Grants are a great boon for funding projects provided by state and federal sponsors. Grants are often used as additional support for projects and give them that extra push to see a project cross the finish line, or further improve the project in either scope or quality. However, they are competitive, and therefore not guaranteed. The City of Staten has supplemented the street fund with general funds in the recent past. However, this may not be a sustainable strategy. This also means future projects and contingencies that depend on the general fund may be impacted. The next method for funding involves creating a new source by allocating property tax, also known as tax incremental financing, or TIF. Generally, property tax can go up to 3% every year in Oregon. Urban Renewal allocates a portion of that increased property tax within the specified urban renewal area as a new bucket that can be used for funding street projects. At no point are you paying more taxes, it is just distributed differently. This can be a lot to take in, so let's do a quick review of the potential funding strategies. The first strategy is adjusting street fees, which will increase taxes and increase street funding one for one. In the same vein is adjustments to the local gas tax, with every cent per gallon would provide additional revenue for projects. The next strategy would be to get a loan. This would provide millions of dollars in street funds and result in many street improvements in the near future. The loan would need to be repaid, which could happen through higher street fees or through property tax levies. This option may involve a citywide vote on a ballot measure. Then we have General Fund Supplement. This is the transfer of funds to help support projects and department buckets. However, it might not be a sustainable long-term strategy. Next is state and federal grants, which provide extra funding for improvement projects, but may be part of a competitive grant and not guaranteed. And finally is urban renewal, a flexible allocation of property tax to fund streets within a designated boundary. Benefits will be limited to the boundary, but may increase interest in the nearby properties. There are multiple ways to increase funding and improve streets, and that is why we need your input. We need your insight to provide the information to help us get the whole picture, to know where you want to see improvements, how you want to support financing strategies, and guide how we prioritize streets. Please take a moment to fill out our streets survey using the QR code on screen or on our city site, and tell us what you want to see for the future of our streets.